Hey, welcome to Wilderness Medicine Wednesday. This is episode 3. Let's talk about hypothermia.
Okay, so that is really cold.
Okay, signs and symptoms of mild hypothermia I don't quite have yet. They are shivering, fine motor shivering that you could stop if you tried, and the umbles. And the umbles are stumbling, grumbling, fumbling, mumbling. Anything that I guess you could put in front of umble is the umbles. And I'm not quite there, but I'm close.
You have to remember in this situation the 1-10-1 rule, which is 1 minute to control your breathing. It's not that hard, in part because of the dry suit. You can see how much it's puffing up with air. I'm going to let some of that out. Yeah, that is cold. Okay, 1 minute to control your breathing, 10 minutes to self-rescue, and then 1 hour before hypothermia causes unconsciousness. So we're going to get back in the boat now. Okay, so first steps for dealing with hypothermia is change the environment. This is an environmental problem that we have to change. Having the van makes this pretty easy. I got to get out of these wet things. And dry suit can come off in there, but the rest of that has to come off out here. Okay, let's get inside. My big problem right now from just about 3 minutes in that water is fingertips are still numb and toes are pretty cold. So I'm going to get out of this dry suit, make sure that I am in fact dry, which I seem to be, and then get under a sleeping bag to help warm me up. Okay, so change the environment. My clothes are dry, but I'm still gonna get this sleeping bag around me. Obviously, you may not have the ability to get into a van or get into a sleeping bag. You get into a tent with a sleeping bag. As we're speaking about sleeping bags, let's forget the whole 2 people in a sleeping bag. That's just not true. It's myth. First off, modern sleeping bags, you're going to have a hard time getting 2 people into. With this sleeping bag, you might be able to do it, but with modern mummy bags, it's hard to get 2 people in a sleeping bag. You lose a rescuer. Essentially, you lose a person who is in good working order, and you don't end up with 2 warm people. You end up with 2 lukewarm people. So it doesn't really work. Good time to have a hot drink, to have simple foods, a Snickers bar, a candy bar, something like that. High calorie, easy to digest, simple sugars, and then exercise. A lot of times on Knowles courses in Alaska, we'll do like push-up derbies before going to bed when it's really cold or something like that. Calisthenics to get the body going. Those are the 3 ways that the body gains heat, is an external heat source. So I'm still radiating a little bit of heat, and so the sleeping bag will do that, but maybe hot water bottles inside the bag or something like that. So external heat source, exercise, and calories are the 3 ways the human body can gain heat. External heat source could be the sun, right? As beautiful as it is out today, it might not be doing enough. So those are the ways that we gain heat. Moderate hypothermia is uncontrollable shivering. You can't make yourself shivering. Umbles get worse.
Pretty far up College Fjord. It rained all the way. It's still raining. It's really cold. Camera's shaking because I'm shivering.
This is really problematic. You really got to take those steps to change the environment, get the people in dry clothes. You can see how fast I'm talking. It's because my heart rate is racing because I am still really cold. Let's talk about what hypothermia really is. Hypothermia is a lowering of the body's core temperature, right? You should be around 98 degrees. There's a fair amount of variation person to person, but 98 degrees is in general where you should be. And it's a lowering of that core temperature. And what happens is that when you shock the body like that, your body says, ooh, I've got to make sure heart and lungs and brain are getting good oxygenated warm blood. And it's going to start pulling blood from your extremities to your core, which is why my hands are still so cold. Get those people out of cold layers, into warm layers, in a tent, in a bag, hydrated, and you could even then do multiple sleeping bags with hot water bottles. It takes time to rewarm someone, so take that time, change sort of the course of what you're doing, and fix this problem, because this is a pretty big problem. I want to add just one other thing. This is now 30 minutes, at least 30 minutes since I was in the water, and I am still cold. It takes a while to rewarm. This is with fresh layers and in the van and the heat on, and it takes a while to rewarm. Severe hypothermia, you start to see changes in levels of responsiveness. Your patient will go unconscious. Eventually, their heart rate will start to drop, and they'll get rigid. Essentially, they're dying of hypothermia, which is a bad way to go. Is it a bad way to go? You get really cold, you fall asleep? Maybe it's not that bad. I don't know. It sounds like a bad way to go. So as I said when I was in the water, the 1-10-1 rule, so 1 minute to sort of get your breathing under control. There is a thing called cold shock, and which I was going to talk about out there, but I couldn't make that happen. Cold shock, or the mammalian diving reflex. My body has gotten pretty used to being in cold water, so I don't get that as badly as I used to. But it's hard to catch your breath. It's hard to yell for help, which is why a whistle is a good thing. Take that 1 minute, get your breathing under control. Then you have 10 minutes to get out of the water and into your boat. Once you're in your boat and out of the water, you will do much better. Even if you're wet, water is pulling heat away from you way faster than air is. So your boat is a far better place to be. And then the process of pumping your boat out will hopefully warm you up. I would still look for the easiest, quickest way to get ashore, so that you could start getting out of wet things and into dry things and layers and things like that. Oh, let's talk about the things people love to talk about that are not really things. Excuse me, my hands are still pretty numb. That are not really things. Let's talk about paradoxical undressing. This is when someone who is hypothermic takes off their clothes. There are lots of discussions as to why. As far as I could tell from the research I did, there was only one real research paper done on it. It was done in Sweden. It was not done in a wilderness environment. Alcohol is almost always a factor, and I don't mean the person is drunk. I mean the person has a high amount of daily alcohol intake. It's for some reason with those people we see paradoxical undressing. It is still extremely rare. It is very unlikely that you will ever experience this in the real world. As I said, there's really only one study about it. And I reached out to our former curriculum director, Todd Schimmelfennig, who wrote the Knowles Wilderness Medicine book. Paradoxical undressing is not in there. It is also not in Medicine for Mountaineering. And I asked Todd why it wasn't in his book, and he said it was because I couldn't find research on it. I think it's pretty rare. We didn't include it. So there's your answer. Super fun to talk about. I don't think it really happens. Another one, if you want to go down that hole, is, I think it's called terminal burrowing. People who are about to die start digging holes to crawl into. I'll just let you Google that one. It's very weird. Okay, so I'm starting to feel better. My next plan of attack, I'm going to put on another layer as I'm feeling a bit better. My hands are still pretty numb. I'm going to add another layer, and then I'm going to start the van and get the heat going, which will really help. External heat source, and we should be in much better shape. Okay, I've changed layers. I've added some layers. Unfortunately, walking around in the van, my socks got wet, but I think I'll be okay. Hands are not quite as numb, still surprisingly cold. I was in the water 25 minutes ago. So doing a bit better. Hypothermia can happen super easily. Like, I think a lot of us active in the outdoors are mildly hypothermic a fair amount of the time, but it's not that bad. But when you start seeing shivering, when you start seeing umbles, that's a problem. So proof that I was mildly hypothermic yesterday. I just never shot an ending to that video. So here we are 24 hours later. I will say I was cold until last night when I finally broke down and lit a fire in our fireplace and then went from there to a hot shower. And it wasn't like I was shivering or anything like that. I could not get warm. So think about dealing with that in the backcountry. It's difficult in the backcountry to fix that problem because you have limited resources. As I said last time, almost all the information for these is coming out of the Knowles Wilderness Medicine book and Medicine for Mountaineering. I cross-check both. They have different curriculum people, so different worlds. And then I do a fair amount of research online, and if I still don't know the answers, I reach out to people that I know that I work with. And usually they know. That's the nice thing about having a wilderness medicine community, which is what I've got, and you could have if you took a wilderness first aid class. I still talk to and hear from people who were on classes with me as they have questions or they have experiences. If this content is working for you, do me a favor, hit like, hit subscribe. You can buy me a coffee on Coffee, which would help warm me up. Otherwise, I'll see you outside.
Well, 10 minutes later in dry clothes, the world is a far better place. Over there is Yale Glacier. That's probably the day after tomorrow. Over there, to the left of Yale, is Harvard Glacier. That's probably tomorrow, unless the weather stays like this, which it's actually supposed to.